everyone, and thanks for coming. My name is Brittany Allen, and I'm going to be discussing an opt-out system for organ donation. So first, I'd like to get started with the problem. Over 120,685 people are waiting for an organ transplant in the U.S. alone, which means that every day about 18 people die while waiting. There's an immense shortage of organs available for transplantation. To put this into perspective, the U.S. population is about 314 million people, as measured in 2012. However, also in 2012, less than 35% were registered organ donors. And this led me to my main research question, which was, how can we get more people to donate their organs in the United States? After examining organ donation in other countries, I found those with the highest rates of donation have adopted an opt-out system, and this is commonly referred to as presumed consent. In the US, we have an opt-in system, which means you must explicitly say you would like to be an organ donor. I'm sure many of you had the option to register as one when either getting or renewing your license, and although it wasn't difficult, you probably just had to check a box, it still required action on your part. With an opt-out system, you would automatically be an organ donor unless you chose not to be, and the ability to unregister would be just as easy, something like checking a box. However, my research has shown that changing this default actually makes a big difference. Belgium enacted an opt-out system in 1986, and since then, no more than 2% have registered against organ donation. In Austria, their donation rates quadrupled within 8 years of enacting this system. And this graph at the bottom shows in gold the people who have opted in those countries with an opt-in system, and in blue, those are the people who have not opted out in countries with an opt-out system. So clearly, the blue opt-out system has a much higher consent rate. So specifically in my research, I chose to do a comparison of the US and Spanish models of organ donation, because in STS, the comparison is a valuable tool for evaluating science and technology policy. I chose Spain because they are the world's leader in organ donation, and they also have an opt-out system in place. To sum up the results briefly, Spain has a very comprehensive national transplant system. It operates at 3 different levels, and it really stresses public education and awareness. Additionally, it receives funding from health administrations. The U.S. is continuously working to improve its effectiveness, but is not yet on the same level. However, both have adopted a national health system for the population, both have the same criteria for procuring organs, and both have very similar attitudes regarding organ donation. According to surveys, about 2/3 of the people in each country are in favor of organ donation. Some improvements the U.S. could make would be improvements in funding and coordination, and also a bigger focus on education and training efforts. So you may ask, an opt-out system is not a new idea, and many people have positive views about it, so why hasn't it been tried in the U.S.? And the answer is that it has. Both Florida and Georgia have enacted partial presumed consent laws regarding cornea donation several years ago. Some stipulations for these laws include that there must be a request for corneas from the eye bank, the medical examiner tried and failed to contact the next of kin, and there's no known objection to donation. And these laws have actually greatly increased cornea donation in both states, and the next step would be to extend this to all organs. So to help predict how the U.S. would perceive a full opt-out system, I looked into how the U.S. makes decisions based on its civic epistemologies. These are the practices by which society tests knowledge in order to make collective choices, and it can really lead to an understanding of how knowledge is perceived as reliable. So in the U.S., there's a tendency to carry out socio-technical experiments. Their success can validate what the technology stands for. So in this case, the opt-out system on a state-by-state basis could be the experiment. And if it works in one state, it'll encourage society that is a good solution. Additionally, the U.S. prefers a quantitative analysis of problems. People really like to see numbers and statistics. So the shortage of organs available for transplantation and the rates that an opt-out system in other countries have improved donation are 2 big statistics definitely capable of capturing public attention, not to mention the millions of dollars saved from performing transplantation rather than alternative care. And lastly, professional skills and success really count a lot in the U.S. So if the physicians and the professionals are the one advocating the system, then the public will hold that in high regard. To wrap things up, I've looked externally to other countries with high donation rates, and I've seen they have an opt-out system in place. I've looked internally at the U.S., at its infrastructure, attitudes, and decision-making, and I believe that an opt-out system could be successful on a state-by-state basis. After all, forms of presumed consent have already been passed in some states. And just to clarify, this new system is not meant to be unfair to those opposed to organ donation, as it is still keeping the power in the hands of the people. Although this new system will not solve the organ shortage crisis, it will presumably mitigate it, and it will stop that number from increasing every day. Thank you.